Market Musings podcast with Fairbairn and Russell. Hello and welcome back to the Geo podcast here from Stopbox with Kenny Russell, me, and of course Charlie the geologist, who we've not spoken to for a little while. Charlie, we've definitely missed you on our podcast. How are you doing?
Oh, thanks, chaps. No, all is well. All is well. Glad to be back on the podcast after a bit of time, eh?
Yeah, a bit of time, but let's get straight into it. And of course, Kenny's joining us as well. Kenny, you doing okay?
Yep, all good. It's good to have you back on, Charlie. It's probably been about 8 or 9 months since we try to think of the last podcast. It was probably the Hemlo special we done back in March, April last year. I think that was the last time we had you on. But anyway, we've got you back on. So we're not going to hang around, Charlie. I've never ever talked about a company that's exploring in Greenland. It's a whole new ball game for us. So we're really keen to hear about AEX Gold, and I've been doing a bit of digging on this company. And obviously, the first thing that struck me, Charlie, and you can tell me more about it, is the size of the actual projects that they've got out there. I mean, it's just a huge area of prospects. It's like 4,000 square kilometres or something.
Oh yeah, this huge property they've got down in the south of Greenland, and It's actually quite interesting. Most people think Greenland as this cold, desolate kind of place. I recently actually visited AEX's property back in October, and we flew south from Iceland, which people wouldn't kind of usually expect. Greenland's actually more east and more south than Iceland, which is quite an amazing place. So we didn't go directly south. You go southwest, but it's a interesting place to be exploring, and only recently started to be kind of opening up to explorers, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a place that you, as Kenny said, where you find explorers really, and almost a bit of a mysterious place. But is it known for its natural resources?
Well, yes, it has had actually quite a bit of history for mining, not only in the past. You had some copper miners over there that, in fact, if you look at AEX's presentation, they've picked up ground where an old copper mining operation was active. You've also got, I think it's, who's the recently listed graphite project down in the southwest? They're an old historic graphite mine project as well. You've got rubies coming out of Greenland. You've got quite a lot of. There's a lot of bits and bobs out there, and I certainly know as well from so Greenland's actually owned by Denmark, and my girlfriend's Danish, and some of her family are actually geologists and friends of geologists, and Denmark have spent, since the time that they've owned it, they've had people up there exploring, collecting rocks. And I went to in Copenhagen. They've got a geological museum there. Highly recommend it if you ever go to Copenhagen. And in there, they have a wealth of hand specimens and maps, all of Greenland. It's just because it's such a distant location that it hasn't been explored, but geologically, where it sits is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Okay, so it's the location and maybe the access, would you say then, or the terrain that just makes it a little bit harder to explore on?
That's exactly it. It is up in the north. It hasn't got great infrastructure, despite being a Danish. I don't know the exact term. Good pop to my head in a second, but yeah, being a Danish country or principality, there we go. It's made up of lots and lots of small towns and villages, which are very localized, and everything's accessed predominantly by the sea. The roads there are just local ones within the village. There aren't roads crossing the country, so access is always an issue. And this is something actually when I went to see AEX's property, that's what I had in the forefront of my head was, okay, how are we actually going to get to this property? How accessible is it to extract minerals? Because the geology is fantastic. If you look on a map, exactly where Greenland's been split off, it's related to the Scandinavian peninsula, where you've got Sweden's gold line crossing Sweden, and it vanishes into the ocean. Of course, once upon a time, Greenland and the Scandinavian peninsula were actually all part of one piece, and that crosses that very bottom bit of from Greenland. And then when you go across from Greenland, you're looking at Newfoundland, and that used to be all connected as well. And suddenly you go into Newfoundland, and it's another location full of these high-grade gold mines, IOCG styles of mineralization, well known. So the geology isn't an issue here. It's access. And this is what hopefully we'll talk a little bit about AEX and what they've done last year to make this such an exciting proposition for getting Greenlandic exposure.
Yeah, man, it's certainly, I mean, I was aware of the company, but I mean, I wouldn't say it's in everyone's radar. But I mean, when you look at they've got a nice split. They've got a gold portfolio, and then they've got a strategic minerals portfolio as well. So they've got gold, copper. I think there's PGMs, nickel. I think there's graphite in there as well. So they've got a nice mix. But I mean, the eye-catching stuff's obviously the gold. I mean, I think they're sort of a cornerstone project. I'm trying to pronounce this. The Nalunak. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, the Nalunak project is actually an old gold mine, and it is the reason why I so love AEX's proposition. It's an old mine, previously mined by who was it? It was Angel, Black Angel. Where am I getting the name from here? So they used to mine it, and sadly, due to basically paying off debt issues, they closed the mine down. But it's left with this infrastructure, not just an underground mine infrastructure, which accesses the Nalunak mine. It's got a base camp, which access to this fjord, which being in the southern end of Greenland, actually is pretty much ice-free all year round. So great access to the project, and also initial infrastructure, which this year they've really built on to make a fantastic all seasons cabin. Oh, not cabin, it's a facility there, so that they can house something along the lines of 50 people there to be operating and working on the projects in that region, which, unlike most explorers, that's a critical hurdle. Usually it's got to be a major who comes in and puts down this huge lump sum of money to build that critical exploration camp so that you can work there all year round. AEX have got that. So they actually have this for let's call it exploration hours. They outcompete many of the other explorers in the region just because they're on site, and they can be that bit more flexible with when they go to one property rather than the other, because they've got an all seasons camp that they can leverage off.
Yep. And they've actually got a resource at this Nalunak as well, haven't they?
Yeah, no, very exciting. Recently, that not only so it's a small resource at the moment, 250,000 ounces at an exceptionally high grade, 18.5 grams a ton gold. Now, that's being drilled out further because something that was discovered this year during the drilling from the geologist Will Gray, he identified that actually this gold vein, which cross-cuts the hillside, Eldor describes it as a slice of cheese in a sandwich, right? And it really does look like that. I recommend anyone to go onto their website and have a look. They've got these 3D visualizations of the project. Very interesting, exciting. It's a narrow vein that cuts across the hillside, but then you can see in the hillside these stripes. Now, these are dikes, dolerite dikes, that cut into the hillside. And now these are pre-sin mineralizing dikes that originally were kind of either they weren't looked at in enough detail, but Will was able to, through the drilling, identify that there are actually controlling features to the gold. So now suddenly the AEX team have gone, well, we can focus our drilling on known structural zones that have concentrated the gold mineralization. And this is something that now that they've identified, it's going to help them redo that resource, or at least redefine where their drilling's going. And we should see this resource grow hopefully significantly. It's certainly showing a lot of life, a lot of extensions to that current resource. And from last time I heard from them, they had about 4 drill rigs on site, all weather drill rigs. And I'm excited to see what comes out from this drilling that they're doing at the moment.
Yeah, and side by side or in parallel with that, they're obviously building a processing facility as well on site.
Yes, there's the Halyards study that's going on at the moment, bringing the operation up to kind of a feasibility level. Now, something that they're doing that's really quite cool, and something that Tungsten West is also doing, is using ore sorting. So when you go into this mine at Nadalak, you'll see that the host rock, or the non-mineralized rock, is black, and the mineralized rock, which is quartz veins, is white. Now, once they've mined it, and these in relatively narrow veins, they can they stope them underground. They take that material out and they put it through an ore sorter, which basically can look at the colors of the rock that's coming through the ore sorting machine, and it rejects the stuff that's black and accepts the stuff that's white. And as a result, it means that you don't have to process half the amount of rock that goes into the processing. So things like crushing, which is very high cost, a certain amount of crushing has to be done for it to be the right size to go into the ore sorter. But now we've got rocks, which is basically you're high grading your material that's going to be processed. So taking that 18 or so grams a ton material and upgrading it to something like 30 grams a ton material, which is, that's a lot more economic to process, a lot more efficient to process. It'll do a huge amount for what they are trying to do and becoming a highly valuable miner. So this isn't a margin miner. This is a high profit mining operation that these guys are starting up.
Yeah. And, one of the other things that caught my eye as well, there was 3 or 4 things I was going to chat about. Obviously, we'll go through all the projects or the key ones anyway. I mean, it's unheard of an explorer to have the level of cash that these guys have got in the bank. I mean, it's something. I think the market cap, I'm going to say it's like 55 million quid, and they've got like 25 million pound cash in the bank, which is in this day and age is unheard of for I'm going to call them a junior explorer, because ultimately that's still what they are.
Yeah, they're kind of a weird hybrid, aren't they?
Yeah.
They were hoping to put the Madalak mine into production last year, really. So looking at the competency of the team, they did what they should have done. They went in, they started looking at the infrastructure of the underground operation and identified issues with the bulkhead. And that's something that still needs to be signed off from the southern block. But again, that's the competency of the team. They realized, okay, wait, let's stop operations, let's conserve money. We know then COVID, of course, was layered on top of that. And suddenly they realized, okay, well, we're not going to be in production the same time we thought we were going to do. Let's go back to basics and work out when we can do this properly. A lot of that money was raised from institutions. We did see a sell-off at that point, but really that hasn't much has changed in what they are trying to do. They've got a mine that will be, well, hopefully will be going into production relatively soon. And that's why they were able to raise all of that money. And I think they've managed to not just create a clear, again, another very clear line to production, but they've been able to upgrade that plan. The time that would have already been, the time that's basically others would have lost, they've built on that. So no, I think that's an interesting piece for them, and it's allowed them to do all of the exploration in the region. And well, maybe we should go on to some of their projects in the area. And if I may,
we can. I wonder, Charlie. I'm just looking on their website at the What do you say, Naluak? That's the name of the
Nadalak, yeah.
Nadalak. They talk about this long hole stopping mining. Any idea what that means?
So long hole stoping.
Stoping even.
Stoping, yeah. So long hole stoping, it's a relatively conventional way of mining. Underground, you hit the vein, you go along the vein, one at a higher point, one at a lower point. You then have basically you drill holes down from the top hole to the bottom hole, and you blast material going up. And that material falls down to the bottom layer that you've created, that bottom horizon, where it can be mined out from there and taken away. Yeah. So there's a number of different ways to mine, but because it's a narrow vein, but it's very consistent. This isn't anastomosing or snaking its way down. It's quite a consistent vein, and the competency of the rock. So this is how strong it is exceptionally good, and it's not very fractured either. So as you do this long hole stoping, so the alternatives might be sub-level stoping, where you have to put an extra basically tunnel along the vein between your two cross cuts. And I think I'm visualizing this okay for people, but again, I recommend there's some fantastic YouTube videos on long hole stoping, block caving, sub-level caving. Strongly recommend it, because you do need to visualize these things in 3D to understand them. But because the rock is very hard and it doesn't have a lot of fractures in, it means they can be more efficient in their drilling, hence the long holes that they're able to produce. And when they blast, it means that they get less dilution from the host rock falling into this now open space and diluting the quartz in there. Does that explain
I see. And the video on the website shows a good visual which ties into what you're explaining there. But
good.
Yeah,
good.
It makes sense. And then they can collect the ore from the, as you said, the bottom kind of tunnel that they've made and extract it that way. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So
saves cost. It's just it's another way of being cost efficient with your mining extraction.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, obviously, that's not their only gold project, Charlie. I mean, the one that just jumps out the page at you is, what do you call it? Is it Vega Ridge?
Vega, yes. Now, this one, Nadalak's a lovely near-term production project. But when we talk about Vega now that's something a bit bigger. It's something like 2 kilometer long ridge. And I again, when I was out with AEX, I was fortunate enough to be in a chopper with one of their exceptionally talented support chopper crews, landing right on that ridge. Again, actually, if anyone wants to see again on my Facebook, on my Twitter page, Geology Charlie, I've got a video of us taking off from this ridge. It was probably no more than 2-3 meters wide. This guy managed to land a helicopter on. Now, this ridge extends for about 2 kilometers. And historically, they identified these number of veins cross-cutting the ridge. This has again been, the team went back there, they sampled the ridge, and they saw, just like Nadalak, high-grade veins, very high-grade grab samples. And that was a great starting point for them. But what they've started to realize is, unlike Nadalak, where the gold is only associated with the quartz veins, Vega has got gold disseminated within the host rock. And that's suddenly giving them the potential to be, okay, well, we do have a high-grade zones, which could be focused on if you're going to have to do a selective mining process to get this into production quickly. But actually that low-grade disseminated zone across this ridge, and remember, it's a ridge, not a hole in the ground, meaning extraction here on a bulk commodity size is a lot more efficient because you don't have any material on the outside of the ore body to remove. This is all just taking it down from a hill. That can be all taken down, be shipped the fjord goes straight down in front of you to the sea. You can see this valley and go straight to the ocean. And again, recommend people looking on their website to see this. Very simple extraction, processing, and the critical mass that they have there could turn this into, well, a very, very substantial mining opportunity, deposit. And again, maybe I should emphasize this about Greenland, because explorers haven't been able to get there because of this critical kind of access hurdle. It's meant that, unlike the rest of the world, you go to West Australia, you go to West Africa, Canada, geologists have been all over this. They've been able to get in there, put the drill rigs in, and now all the surface exploration has been completed. Now we're going for, we're finding the major deposits at depth. So stuff like Greatland's Javieron, right? That's in an area which has got no mineralization, but you had to find it at depth. You've got to do a lot of drilling to find it. Here, it's not the issue of drilling and finding, is just the issue of getting there. And with this all seasons camp, the team are wandering around the place and finding gossanous outcrops, malachite smearing at surface, places that you would expect to have seen maybe 50, 60, 100 years ago, which you don't get in West Australia or Canada now because it's been found.
Yeah, and some of the rock chips are off the scale. Some of the sampling, I mean, there's 2,500 grams per ton. But you can sometimes you hear some silver, 2,500 grams per ton, but not gold. That's just crazy.
No, I would hesitate with mentioning that. Yes, you've got fantastic gold grades there, but this material can be nuggety.
Yeah.
So nuggety, again, I think I've referred this in some of the previous podcasts we've done together, but sometimes gold can be consistent. So between one point and another point, they're very similar grades. And in this material, it can go from very high grade to very low grade. But seeing that stuff at surface, again, it gets you to think, well, this actually has got a lot of critical, having that higher grade means you just have to have a smaller area to be economic. And that's what that kind of number makes it very exciting. So don't be surprised if a resource comes out at thousands of grams a ton material. But having 1,000 of grams a ton hand sample says, well, I need to only find a small area to be mineralized to be very exciting.
Yeah. I'll get your drift. And obviously, just before we move on to the strategic mineral targets, there's a couple of other gold projects in the portfolio. Charlie, do you want to just cover them off for a couple of minutes?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll quickly spin over them. I didn't get to visit any of the other ones, but I guess there's worth mentioning, I guess, the IOCG targets of Sava, which, again, needs to have a lot of work done on it. But again, already at surface, we're seeing clear malachite staining. They've got 3% copper at surface. Again, giving you that idea that they've got kind of a critical grade. So again, material and IOCGs, you look over again to Sweden, again, you're seeing these large IOCG targets. They're the ones I'd be looking at if I wanted kind of models of what kind of target we're going to be looking at for these sorts of systems. And then you've got now this is where I lose being able to say the names. Nanook, which is a fantastic looking area where there's a major fold structure in there that had been studied previously, but the team got on the ground, started doing some sampling, thought that they were expecting kind of a 1 meter wide kind of target veining system, let's call it. And they started doing some structural measurements on this fold, and they started following along the limbs of the fold, and they suddenly realized, well, wait a moment, this continues, and it continues and continues and continues. And they still haven't found, from what I remember them telling me, is they still haven't seen the full extent of this system. And that's a gold copper system, again, at surface. The glaciers have retreated and they've exposed these vast areas which were known of. Explorers even some of the majors have been on this ground. And that's what some of the data that they're working off as well. Some of these majors have picked up this material and kind of gone, well, great, this looks fantastic. But back maybe even 10 years ago, why would you look at Greenland when you could go to West Australia, Canada, West Africa, even South America? We're talking Chile, Brazil. All these places are opening up, and that's easy to access. I don't have to spend too much money to open an exploration camp and start getting geologists on the ground de-risking targets. In Greenland, you've got to be putting in quite a bit of cash to build a camp, to get you guys there, to make sure they're safe, to make sure that you can get them in and out in the correct weather conditions. And that's something, again, just I'm emphasizing the point on access to operational infrastructure here.
Yep. Yeah. And obviously we talked about it earlier, there's some graphite in the mix as well, bit of copper, zinc, there's the PGM. So there's almost like there's enough here for 3 or 4 companies. So there is, Charlie.
It certainly is.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's one company that's got this whole portfolio. They could almost spin off 2 or 3 companies. So they could from this. It's an amazing portfolio. You wouldn't know where to begin. I mean, obviously I've looked at their team, and I mean, you mentioned it earlier on. I mean, the wealth of experience in their actual board of directors and management team is just incredible. I mean, there was one guy that caught my eye. Wait to find it. Sorry, James Gilbertson. Now he was.
I was going to say it was him. Yes, no, I was going to say that's going to be the guy who catches people's eyes. He left SRK, who he was, I guess, becoming an old face at SRK, kind of head of their exploration wing, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I was out there with him, and he's one of those guys who knows his stuff, and you feel happy when he signs something off. Well, he's decided to not just he's worked with the team at AEX, worked on this project for quite a few years as consultant to the team, and he's obviously seen enough of the material coming out and enough of the ground that AEX hold to say, well, wait a moment, this is exciting. This is what I want to do, and has had, as a result, left SRK to join the team to progress their targets, because it is really exciting. I bring people's attentions to stuff that has been explored in the area. You've got over in the east side, Conoco, who have been drilling out these nickel targets, which are at surface. I was chatting to the management team over there last year, and again, they were saying, look, it's just there. We just need the cash to go in and drill these targets. They drilled them, fantastic results. Again, up in the north, there's more new discoveries of large copper systems. What was the company's name? It's not Prairie Mining. There we go. Prairie Mining intercepting or looking at some large copper projects up there. Greenland's starting to open up. And again, for me, it is not a case of, will they find something? Will they not? I think it's quite safe to say that people will find things in Greenland. It's understanding how to operate in these regions. And as we've seen recently, and I'm sure this is going to be in people's minds if they have looked at Greenland, is things like, will the Greenland government allow people to actually produce from these projects? Because we've just seen Greenland Minerals, and I'm going to try and pronounce this, Convenfield. Do you guys know how to pronounce it?
Not a chance from me.
So it's a large rare earth project, I believe carbonatite, that actually sits actually kind of over one of the local towns or cities in Greenland, and it is kind of a bit. We did again go past it, and it's just a little too close, I think. It's a rare earth. It's a rare earth project, but it has a high uranium content there. The government stepped in, and during the last election, there was a big battle between basically it was whether or not they want this project to go into production. That seemed to be a major turning point on the last the last elections. But I can say when I was up in Iceland, we went to what is it called? The Arctic Circle conference up there, and the Greenland government were there, and they were adamant, very kind of outspoken, saying, no, we want to mine. Greenland wants to become its own country. It wants to leave Denmark eventually. It wants to build this kind of self-reliance, because who doesn't want to kind of have their own power? They're a country which has got a huge amount of mineral wealth, and they want to leverage off it, but in a sustainable way. And that's what the government there are looking at. And they're looking at people like Elder, who are both very focused on looking after shareholders, building up a project, but they want to build it up in a sustainable way. And Elder's one thing he constantly, if you ever listen to him presenting, he's always going on about this kind of Greenland legacy, and it's a Greenland focused company. It's about building the future of Greenland, and hence the team that they've been working with kind of these smaller contractor groups, like the helicopter crews, some of the boat access guys, and the hotels in the area. It was always, he's very focused on making sure that the money's going back to the locals and that he's able to support their infrastructure. Because if you're coming into someone like the Greenlanders' backyard, these are people who have suffered, and they do suffer. They're a very underprivileged population, I guess, is one way to put it. But it's good to know that the people you're investing in are investing in the communities and the population around it, and it's nice to think, well, actually, this is a project that's going to make a difference. And okay, gold isn't exactly the most greenest of minerals or metals to be mining, but it's a gateway to other operations operating in the area. Copper takes a huge amount of infrastructure to mine, process, and export material, as well as needing a huge number of workers to work on it. Whereas gold, you don't need that. You can have a much smaller area, much smaller amount of capital, and it allows you to pay for that infrastructure, which allows you to roll out into other commodity extractions, which are more kind of resource intensive, let's call it, extractions like copper. So it's great that they're finding the material there, but it's even better that they found gold and they're progressing with that.
Yeah, what I like about these guys, Charlie, is they've got this kind of sort of 4-stage sort of asset portfolio. So they've got target generation, they've got exploration projects, they've got advanced exploration projects, and they've obviously got the development projects. So there's a bit of something in there for everyone. And obviously the news that we're going to be seeing in the next 12 months, well, it should be busy. I mean, what do you expect to see from these guys in the next 12 months, Charlie?
Well, I see there's going to be a lot of focus on getting the mine up and running. Certainly for their institutional long-term holders in the company, seeing that get into production is going to be critical. They're going to have a lot of exploration to be going on at the same time, which I think actually is great for the company. They're going to be seeing new targets coming online. Now, whether they're spun out, whether they are bought out, I think from my kind of understanding of what Elder wants to build here is he's going to want to keep control of this area. He's like we were talking about, building on the locals' understanding of, building on their relationship that they have with the Greenlanders. They want to be that kind of core base to exploring. They want to make sure that the locals are looked after and not just, we found something here and we're going to spin it out to someone else who comes along and ruins my reputation. No, I think these guys are going to be, again, it's leveraging off their current infrastructure. And this year we'll see the benefits of that. A huge work program of, like you said, I've got drill results. We have the studies to the feasibility study level, see that project kind of coming alive, seeing some visualization to cash flow, but at the same time seeing some massive targets being de-risked and brought to drill target ready stage. And that's what I'm really excited about, is seeing some things progress like that.
And obviously we mentioned earlier on, they've got this huge war chest that will facilitate all this action.
Yes, these guys are able to put down some big drilling campaigns. It's critical mass, reducing that cost per ounce to discover. And these guys don't have high geological risk. The only thing they've really got is kind of capital expenditure risk, and they're putting it, from what I can see from the team, to good work. They really are making sure that every dollar counts, and having a big war chest can often mean that people want to sit on it and not risk that money because it's what they're going to live off. No, I can see Elder. He's got this stuff stored up because he knows exactly where he's going to put every penny of it.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark, I've been talking a lot. I'll let you jump in before we finish off.
No, I think that was a good way to finish. The only thing I was going to ask Charlie was, do you feel that what's prevented Greenland in the past perhaps becoming the place for exploration like Australia, do you think that is a risk, or do you think that risk is day by day becoming less of a concern, and we might be looking at a new and exciting place to go and explore for minerals?
For me, it's the new and exciting place to explore for minerals. It's on Europe's back doorstep. In fact, it's because Denmark is a European country. Okay, It's got close to Denmark. It's where our green transition metals are going to come from. Where else are you going to find in Europe massive copper deposits or these exceptionally high grade gold deposits? Nickel deposits, kind of these things that are really quite hard to find around the world. This is where we're going to be going and finding them. Technology is advanced hugely. You can make sure that all of your crew on the ground have got kind of bits of technology that ensures that they're safe, which in the past would have been very scary for a geologist kind of going off and being dropped off by helicopter, which back then would be the price of helicopters. Okay, it's still expensive to go and drop someone off by helicopter, but it's feasible now. And I can make sure that I know exactly where every one of my team is through technology, through satellites. I can make sure that I know what's happening, it comes down to safety. I really do think. Also, you're able to use things like remote sensing techniques, such to Landsat work, and so basically satellite data, looking at the ground and looking for alteration features. You can look for structures in there to target that exploration work a lot more efficiently. And so all this work kind of is suddenly unpicking away at restrictions that teams have had to actually access the ground and go exploring. And I think a mixture of that is what we're going to be seeing soon. Is more people getting to Greenland and finding some new projects. Oh, and of course, global climate change. That's the sad truth about it. The ice sheets retreating is exposing this material, and that's why really it hasn't been mined previously. It's got whacking big ice sheets on top of it. Now that those are gone, and we're having open seas nearly all year round, if not all year round, it makes access
a bit easier. Yeah. It's very exciting that it could be Europe's answer to the future of supply of commodities. It reminds me, echoes of feelings of Alaska. And one of the companies we speak to occasionally is Nova Minerals. And when I started talking to the CEO there, Christopher, really opened my eyes to what Alaska had to offer as well. And again, it's similar. It's kind of a hostile-ish place to operate in, but getting better, certainly in today's environment.
Mark, I would completely agree. That's exactly the analogy I've used. I've said that this is the Alaska of Europe to many of my colleagues here at SI. So yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
Excellent. So in your opinion, then, you're looking forward to following the story here and pretty confident about the prospects for the company?
Yes, I'm very, very confident for the prospects of the company. I think it's a great move for a great team to be going out and exploring in Greenland. I think they're already starting to prove, even when they come under difficulties, that they can overcome them, which I think is just fantastic to see, and has given me a lot of confidence.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Charlie, for your time again today, talking to us about AEX Gold. Kenny, any final points, or are you all up to speed, do you think?
Yeah, well, I think we need to get you on again, Charlie, because we just scratched the surface. So we did in reality. I mean, the presentations that the company have got are fantastic, and you could probably lose 2 hours just talking about some of the slides. So, yeah, I think there'll be a follow-up podcast, and we'll probably wait for some suitable news, Charlie, and we'll cover the news, and then we can do a deeper dive, so to speak.
No, I'd love to do that, and I do recommend people to listen to videos that Elder has put out. He is a geologist, so he's not just an accountant with some good land. He knows what he's done, picking this stuff up. So I recommend watching, doing some research, hearing what he's got to say.
Perfect. All right, look forward to that, Charlie. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you, chaps.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with Fairbairn and Russell. Tune in next time.